Midnight has already passed, not by much, just enough for the day to feel finished. You're sitting in a car that isn't moving, parked somewhere quiet. The engine idles softly, a low, steady sound that fills the space without asking to be noticed. Nothing outside the windshield is in a hurry. Snow rests lightly along the edges of the road. Street lights glow without urgency, their light diffused, almost tired. The world looks different after midnight, less defined, less expectant. Inside the car, warmth settles evenly, not heavy, just enough. The dashboard lights stay dim. Numbers and symbols glow quietly, doing their work without needing your attention. You don't check the time again. You already know where you are in the night. The seat supports you fully. Your back rests against it without adjustment. Hands lie where they've fallen, loose, unoccupied. The engine continues its gentle hum, not loud enough to distract, not quiet enough to disappear. It's a sound that holds the moment together. Outside, the street remains still. No passing cars, no footsteps. Even the air seems to have slowed. This hour doesn't belong to plans. It doesn't belong to memory either. It's simply here. You breathe in. The air feels cool and clean as it enters your chest. You breathe out slower than before. Nothing changes, and that feels right. After midnight, there's no expectation to move, no pressure to arrive anywhere else. The night has already done most of its work. The engine idles. The car stays where it is. The world holds steady. And for now, that's enough. The night doesn't shift all at once. It settles. After the first stillness, there's a deeper quiet that follows, the kind that arrives once nothing else is expected. The car remains where it is. The engine continues its low, patient hum. And slowly, without effort, the night finds its place around you. The car feels smaller now, in a comforting way, not confined, contained. The windshield frames a narrow piece of the world, softened by darkness and light. Streetlights blur slightly at the edges. Snow rests where it landed, no longer falling, no longer moving. Inside, everything has found its balance. The seat holds you without adjustment. Your shoulders rest lower than before. Your jaw loosens as if it no longer needs to hold anything in place. The engine's sound becomes familiar enough to fade into the background. Still there, still steady, like a reminder that something is keeping watch while you don't have to. The air inside the car is warm and even. No sharp contrast now between inside and out. Just a gentle boundary. You notice how little there is to do. No buttons to press, no messages to check, no direction required. The night outside remains quiet. Houses sit dark and settled. Windows reflect light without revealing anything behind them. This part of the night doesn't carry conversation. It doesn't invite explanation. It simply allows you to be where you are, exactly as you are. You breathe in, then out. The car stays still. The engine idles, and the night, fully settled now, holds the moment without asking for anything in return. The quiet deepens without announcing itself. It's not sudden. It's gradual, like the night easing its weight evenly across everything it touches. The engine continues to idle, but the sound feels farther away now. Not gone, just less central. Your awareness shifts inward without effort, the way it does when nothing outside needs monitoring. The dashboard glow softens further in your vision. Lights blur slightly at the edges, losing their sharpness. You don't focus on any single detail long enough for it to matter. Your hands rest where they are. No gripping, no adjusting. Breathing becomes the most noticeable movement in the car. In, out. Each cycle slower than the last. The world beyond the windshield feels distant, still present, just no longer relevant. The car isn't waiting. It isn't going anywhere. It's simply holding this small pocket of warmth and sound, allowing everything else to remain outside. Thoughts pass through lightly, if they appear at all. They don't settle. They don't ask to be followed. The night doesn't fill the space with anything new. It lets the space remain open. Snow along the roadside reflects faint light, turning the edges of the street soft and indistinct. Nothing sharp remains. You notice how your body responds to this, how it releases effort without being told. Shoulders sink a little deeper. Your back settles fully into the seat. Even your breath feels supported. The engine idles on. The car stays still. The night holds steady. And in this settled quiet, there's nothing left to manage. Only the gentle continuation of warmth, breath, and time moving slowly enough to rest inside. The quiet doesn't stay empty for long, not because it needs to be filled, but because in stillness like this, something naturally drifts closer. Nothing urgent, nothing fully formed, just the sense that there are words nearby, waiting without impatience. You remain where you are, the car still idling softly around you. The night doesn't change, but your attention shifts slightly, turning inward without effort. There's a familiar feeling that settles in your chest. Not a thought, more like the shape of one. Words you haven't said begin to make themselves known. Not loudly, not all at once. They don't arrive as sentences. They arrive as impressions, fragments, the echo of conversations that never needed to happen out loud. You don't reach for them yet. You simply notice that they're there. The engine hum continues, steady and reassuring, as if giving the moment permission to unfold slowly. The seat supports you fully. Your hands rest unoccupied, with nowhere else they need to be. This isn't a moment for deciding what to say. There's no pressure to shape anything into meaning. It's just the space before writing, before choosing words, before setting anything down. A pause where thoughts gather quietly, like letters left unsent, resting where they are without needing a destination. You breathe in, then out. The night stays calm. The car remains still, and the thoughts hover gently nearby, patient enough to wait until you're ready, or not, to let them take form. The thoughts stay gentle. They don't push forward. They don't ask to be finished. They feel more like letters that were never meant to be mailed, written once in the mind, then folded carefully and left where they are. There's no urgency in them now, no need to explain what happened or why. Only the quiet awareness that something was once shared, and that sharing reached its natural end. You notice how the words arrive without weight. They don't carry blame. They don't look for answers. They simply acknowledge what was there. The engine hum continues, steady and low, holding the space while these thoughts pass through. The car remains warm. The night remains kind. You realize there's nothing left to ask of the words themselves. They've already done what they needed to do, not by being spoken, but by being allowed to exist. Some things don't need a response. They don't need to be sent or received. They just need a place to rest. You breathe in slowly. The thought settles. You breathe out, and it stays, not held, not released, just complete enough. The car idles, the night stays open, and the words, unsent and unclaimed, remain quietly with you, finished without ever needing to be shared. The thoughts begin to thin on their own, not because you push them away, because they've finished arriving. What remains isn't a sentence. It isn't even a clear idea. It's a sense of having reached the end of something without needing a final line. The words you never wrote no longer hover. They settle, not forgotten, just no longer separate from the quiet around them. You notice how your body responds to this shift. Breathing remains slow, even. There's no tension waiting to return. No part of you bracing for a reply that won't come. The night doesn't ask for closure. It doesn't require an exchange. Some connections end without needing to be explained. Some things are complete simply because they were fully felt. The engine idles softly, still doing its quiet work. The car holds steady, unchanged by what has passed through the space. You realize there's nothing left to place into words tonight. Nothing that needs to be written down. The letters that never left you have already done their work. Not by being sent, but by being allowed to rest. You breathe in, then out. The thoughts fade into the same calm layer as the night, the engine, the stillness. And in that softened space, there's a gentle understanding that not everything meaningful needs to be spoken, and not every ending needs a response to be complete enough to let go. The quiet remains, but something shifts within it. Not a decision, not an intention, just the sense that movement could happen now. Small, optional, and unimportant enough to feel safe. The thoughts have settled. The words no longer wait. And still, your hands don't need to stay empty. You reach for something simple. A pen, a small notebook, maybe just a folded piece of paper you keep nearby. The movement is slow, unremarkable. The engine continues to idle, steady and low, as if it's content to keep time while you don't. The night stays quiet. Nothing outside the car changes. You don't sit up straighter. You don't prepare. You simply rest the paper where it lands and let the pen touch it. There's no opening line in mind, no greeting, no plan for how this should go. The words arrive the way they always do when they're not being asked for. Uneven, incomplete, unconcerned with order. You write a few of them down, not to send, not to explain, just to let them exist somewhere outside your body. The sentence doesn't need to make sense yet. It doesn't need to lead anywhere. You pause without finishing it. The page doesn't mind. The pen rests lightly in your hand. The engine hum stays steady. The car holds its quiet circle of warmth. This isn't about completing anything. It's simply the act of letting a few words rest on paper, unfinished, unclaimed, and allowed to stop exactly where they are. You add another line, then stop again. The words don't hurry you. They don't ask to be improved or explained. They sit on the page the way snow sits on the ground, enough to be noticed, not enough to change the shape of everything. Your hand relaxes around the pen. The page stays open, patient. You notice how different this feels from writing something meant to be read. There's no audience here, no expectation waiting on the other side of the page. The engine hum fills the quiet spaces between thoughts. A steady sound, low and forgiving. You write a few more words, not a full thought, just the edge of one. They don't complete each other. They don't need to. This isn't a letter meant to arrive. It's a moment meant to pass. You let the pen rest. The ink dries where it is. There's no sense of loss in stopping. No unfinished tension. What you needed to say has already been said, not in sentences, but in the act of allowing the words to appear at all. You fold the paper once, not carefully, just enough. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't need to. The pen returns to its place. Your hands rest again, empty and calm. The engine continues to idle. The car stays still. And the writing, unfinished and unsent, remains exactly where it belongs, complete enough to be set down, light enough to be left without carrying it with you any further. The paper rests where you left it, folded, unmarked by importance. It doesn't ask to be reopened. It doesn't ask to be kept. The words you wrote don't echo anymore. They've already settled into the quiet, blending with the hum of the engine and the stillness of the night. You notice how light your hands feel now. Nothing held, nothing waiting. The act of writing loosens its grip without ceremony. There's no sense of stopping, only the sense of having reached a natural pause. The engine continues its steady rhythm, a sound that doesn't measure progress, just presence. Outside the windshield, the street remains unchanged. Snow rests. Light glows softly, without direction. Inside the car, the space feels open again, clearer than before. Whatever needed to be set down has been set down, not captured, not preserved, simply allowed to pass through your hands and leave them empty again. You lean back slightly, letting the seat take your weight. Your breathing stays slow, even. There's no need to wonder what the words meant. No need to decide what should happen to them. Some things are finished without being complete. Some endings don't require acknowledgement to be real. The paper stays folded. The pen stays put. And in the quiet that follows, there's a gentle understanding that nothing else needs to be written tonight, and nothing needs to be carried forward from what was never meant to be sent. After the words are set down, what remains is simple. There's nothing left to add, nothing left to remove, only the quiet presence of the paper, waiting without expectation. You reach for the folded page again, not with intention, just with ease. The paper feels light in your hands, thinner than you remember, as if the words themselves have already loosened their weight. You smooth it once, not to read, not to check, just to feel its edges beneath your fingers. Then you fold it again. The motion is slow and unremarkable. Paper meeting paper, a soft sound, barely there. You don't align the corners perfectly. There's no reason to. This isn't about neatness. It's about finishing the motion. You crease it gently, then let your hands rest. The paper holds its new shape without resistance. Whatever was written inside doesn't press outward. It stays contained, calm. The engine hum continues, steady and low, marking time without measuring it. The car remains still. The night remains open. You hold the folded paper for a moment longer, not because it means something, because it's there. Then even that feeling begins to soften. The act of folding feels complete. Nothing else needs to be done. And in that small, quiet movement, there's a sense of closure, not the kind that seals something away, but the kind that allows it to rest without asking to be revisited again. You set the folded paper down, not carefully, just where your hand naturally lands. It rests there without shifting. No urge to pick it up again. No need to decide where it belongs. The words inside no longer feel unfinished, not because they were completed, but because they were allowed to exist. Outside the windshield, snow continues its quiet work, falling into the space ahead of the car. Each flake appears, then disappears, asking nothing of the ground it meets. The engine idles on, a steady presence beneath the silence. It doesn't suggest movement. It doesn't suggest staying. It simply stays. Your hands return to your lap. Fingers loosen. The shape of holding something fades from your body. There's a subtle shift now. Not relief exactly. More like the absence of tension you didn't realize you were carrying. You don't imagine sending the letter. You don't imagine not sending it. Both feel equally distant, equally unnecessary. The night doesn't wait for decisions. It holds space without needing them. The folded paper remains where it is, contained, complete in its own quiet way. And as you sit there, breathing evenly, the sense of needing to be understood begins to soften. not erased, just no longer urgent. The car stays warm, the night stays open, the letter stays folded, and that feels like enough. The moment doesn't move on right away. It doesn't need to. Nothing new enters the car. Nothing leaves. The folded letter has already done its work, and now there's space around it, wide, quiet, and undemanding. You don't fill that space. You sit inside it, and slowly the night settles into what's left. You remain where you are, the car still idling, the snow still falling beyond the glass. There's no next step waiting for you now, no action forming behind your thoughts. Just this. The warmth in the car feels steady, not comforting, not distracting, simply present. Your breathing stays slow, in, out. Each breath arrives without bringing anything with it. Each breath leaves without taking anything away. You notice how complete the moment feels. Not perfect, not resolved. Enough. The kind of enough that doesn't close a door, but doesn't hold it open either. The past doesn't press forward. It rests where it belongs, behind you, without being pushed there. You don't replay what you wrote. You don't revisit what was left unsaid. Those things no longer need your attention to remain true. The night holds you gently, as if it understands that nothing more is required. Snow continues to soften the world outside, layer by layer, quietly smoothing the edges of everything that once felt sharp. Inside the car, your body mirrors that same easing. Shoulders low, hands still, jaw relaxed. There is no sense of waiting now, no anticipation, only the calm awareness of sitting with what was enough and letting it stay that way. The stillness doesn't deepen, it widens. There's more room between one breath and the next now, as if the night has gently stretched time just enough for you to rest inside it. the engine continues its low, even hum, a sound you no longer register as movement, just proof that the car is here, holding its place in the dark. Outside, snow gathers, where it will, on the hood, along the curb, in places you don't bother to notice anymore. Nothing about the scene asks you to engage with it. You don't feel distant from what happened. You don't feel close to it either. The letter exists. The moment exists. And neither requires you to step back into them. Your thoughts grow sparse, not because you've quieted them, but because they've finished saying what they came to say. What remains is a simple awareness of warmth, of stillness, of being held in a pause that doesn't need a name. There's no sense of loss here, no sense of gain, only the calm recognition that something reached its natural end. You stay seated, not lingering, not preparing to leave, just allowing the night to continue on your behalf. Breath in, breath out, and in that steady rhythm, the feeling of enough settles fully into place, not as a conclusion, but as a quiet, livable truth that doesn't ask to be revisited again. Eventually, even the idea of enough begins to soften, not disappear, just lose its edges. It no longer feels like a thought, more like a condition the night has settled into. Your awareness drifts lower now, closer to the body than the mind. The weight of your coat, the support of the seat beneath you, the gentle rise and fall of your chest. Breathing happens without direction, without counting. The engine's sound blends into the background completely, no longer separate from the quiet. Just another layer holding the moment steady. Outside, snow continues its patient fall, but you don't follow it anymore. You don't imagine where it lands or how much has gathered. Those details no longer reach you. The folded letter remains where it was left, but it no longer feels like an object, just part of the stillness in the car, part of the night. There is nothing left to process, nothing waiting to resolve. Even memory rests now, no longer standing apart from the present. Your thoughts thin to the point of transparency. They pass through without forming. In this softened space, the distinction between sitting and resting begins to blur. You are still here, but you are no longer holding yourself here. The night continues quietly on your behalf, carrying time forward without needing your attention. And as everything settles, sound, breath, memory, intention, you remain exactly where you are, supported, unhurried, and gently free to let the quiet do what it does best. Stay. Nothing shifts to mark the change. It happens the way sleep does, without announcement. The night doesn't move forward. It settles. What remains is simple now. Fewer layers, less to notice. Engine, breath, stillness. The engine continues its low, steady idle, no longer separate from the quiet around it. It doesn't suggest motion. It doesn't hold you in place. It's just there, a soft undercurrent beneath the night. Your breathing becomes the clearest thing in the car. In, out. Each breath rises slowly, then falls away without effort. The space between breaths widens, not empty, just unfilled. Snow continues somewhere beyond the glass, but it no longer reaches you as an image. Sound softens. Awareness lowers. The seat supports your body completely now. There's nothing left to adjust, nothing left to carry. Engine, breath, stillness. The engine continues its low, steady, idle, no longer separate from the quiet around it. It doesn't suggest motion. It doesn't hold you in place. It's just there, a soft undercurrent beneath the night. Your breathing becomes the clearest thing in the car. In, out. Each breath rises slowly, then falls away without effort. The space between breaths widens, not empty, just unfilled. Snow continues somewhere beyond the glass, but it no longer reaches you as an image. Sound softens, awareness lowers. The seat supports your body completely now. There's nothing left to adjust, nothing left to carry. Engine, breath, stillness. They exist together without hierarchy, without needing to be named. And as the moment continues, the edges of wakefulness loosen further, not pulled away, just allowed to drift, while the night holds everything else exactly as it is. The engine fades further into the background, not quieter, just less distinct. Its presence becomes something you no longer track, like a sound you realize has been there all along. Your breathing slows again, then slows once more. In, out. The pause after each breath stretches gently, wide enough to rest inside. Nothing fills it. Nothing needs to. The car feels almost motionless now, even though it hasn't changed at all. Warmth stays even. Air stays still. The folded letter is no longer a thought. The night is no longer a scene. There is only sensation, and even that begins to thin. Sound loses its edges. The sense of time loosens completely. Breath arrives, breath leaves. Between them, stillness settles deeper, not as absence, but as something whole. You no longer follow the moment. You remain within it. Engine, breath, stillness, they blend until they are no longer separate things. Just one quiet state, holding you without effort, and slowly, without needing to notice it happen, attention drifts downward, the last traces of wakefulness softening, until there is nothing left to do, nothing left to listen for, and nothing left to hold. Only rest, steady and uninterrupted, continuing on its own.